Da-da-dum, 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 da-da-da-dum, da-da-dum, 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 da-da-da-dum, da-da-dum. The Book of Dawn and Dusk. The Book of Dawn and Dusk is a collection of sayings and aphorisms attributed variously to the tribunals and to the saints and servants. Many of these sayings have become a common cliché of everyday life in Morrowind. The following selection of slogans will illustrate many of the simplest notions of the tribunal faith. Speak none but good of the gods. We can have no opinions but truth. Rumors flow from the house of troubles. Count only the happy hours. No child has a sinner's heart. Let faith be your only law. Fear of the fool is the beginning of wisdom. Civi in every hour. Walk always in the presence of your lords. Comfort is given, justice is taken. Learn by serving. From the heart, the light. From the head, the law. Blessed Civi, mercy, mastery, mystery. Forge a keen faith in the crucible of suffering. Engrave upon the eye the image of injustice. Death does not diminish. The ghost gilds with glory. Faith conquers all. Let us yield to faith. Better to suffer a wrong than to do one. The heavens are in their glory. Applaud. Folly secures its power to harm. Though forbidden to some, not to you. Oh, how rarely wisdom rules our hearts. Blessed are we who serve Civi. Three mouths sing, mercy, mastery, mystery. Gather no seed in the fields of hell. The thrice-sealed house. Withstand the storm. By breath and blood, protect us all. Can ghosts or justice change with time? Consider your end, mortal. Accept grace without limits. Enter the rhapsody of the god poet. Kneel before the teacher's chair. 3 hands, 3 hearts, 3 eyes. Keep no secret from your judge's scale. Forge darkness into light. Refuse neither brother nor ghost. Blessed Civi through birth, life, and ghost. From glowing ashes, the poet's wrath shall shine. If Vivek is for us, who can stand against us? Fate, monstrous and empty, the whirling wheel of evil. How black my heart roasting fiercely. The Anticipations. The Daedra are powerful ancestor spirits, similar in form and substance to the Tribunal, blessed be their holy names, but weaker in power and more arbitrary and removed from the affairs of mortals. In old times, the Chimer worshipped the Daedra as gods, but they did not deserve this veneration, for the Daedra harmed their worshippers as often as they helped them. The advent of the Tribunal, blessed be their holy names, changed this unhappy state. By the apotheosis, the Tribunal, blessed be their holy names, became the protectors and high ancestor spirits of the Dunmer, and bade the Daedra to give proper veneration and obedience. The 3 good Daedra, Boethia, Azura, and Mephala, recognized the divinity of the triune ancestors, blessed be their holy names. The rebel Daedra, Molagbal, Malakath, Shegoreth, and Mir-Segron, refused to swear fealty to the Tribunal, blessed be their holy names, and their worshippers were thus cast out. These rebel Daedra thus became the 4 corners of the House of Troubles, and they continue to plague our tranquility and tempt the unwary into heresy and dark worship. The priests of the temple remain ever vigilant for signs of the adversary's return, sometimes aided by the loyal 3 good Daedra, who are familiar with the wiles of the rebellious kin. The good Daedra are known to the temple as the Anticipations, since they are the early ancestors, anticipations of the loving patronage of the tribunal. The Anticipations are the Daedra lords Boethia, Mephala, and Azora. Boethia is the anticipation of Amalexia, but male to her female. Boethia was the ancestor who illuminated the elves ages ago, before the Mythic era. He told them the truth of Lorkhan's test and defeated Ariel's champion, Trinimac. Boethia ate Trinimac and voided him. The followers of Boethia and Trinimac rubbed soil of Trinimac upon themselves and changed their skins. Mephala is the anticipation of Vivek, but manifold and androgynous. Mephala taught the Chimer to evade their enemies or kill them with secret murder. The Chimer were few in those days and threatened on all sides. Mephala taught the Chimer to build houses. Later, Mephala created the Morag tongue. Azora is the anticipation of Sotha Sil, but female to his male. Azora was the ancestor who taught the Chimer how to be different from the Dunmer. Her teachings are sometimes attributed to Boethia. In the stories, Azora is often encountered more as a communal progenitor of the race as a whole, rather than as an individual ancestor. She is associated with dusk and dawn, and is sometimes called the Mother Soul. Azora's star, also called the Twilight Star, appears briefly at dawn and dusk, low on the horizon, below the constellation of the Steed. Azora is associated with mystery and magic, fate and prophecy. Ancestors and the Dunmer. Ghosts walk among them. The departed spirits of the Dunmeri, and perhaps those of all races, persist after death. The knowledge and power of departed ancestors benefits the bloodline of Dunmeri houses. The bond between the living family members and immortal ancestors is partly blood, partly ritual, and partly volitional. A member brought into the house through marriage binds himself through ritual and oath into the clan, and gains communication and benefits from the clan's ancestors. However, his access to the ancestors is less than his offspring, and he retains some access to the ancestors of his own bloodline. The Family Shrine. Each residence has a family shrine. In poorer homes, it may be no more than a hearth or alcove where family relics are displayed and venerated. In wealthy homes, a room is set aside for the use of the ancestors. This shrine is called the Waiting Door and represents the door to oblivion. Here, the family members pay their respects to their ancestors through sacrifice and prayer, through oaths sworn upon duties, and through reports on the affairs of the family. In return, the family may receive information, training, and blessings from the family's ancestors. The ancestors are thus the protectors of the home, and especially the precincts of the Waiting Door. The Ghost Fence. It is the family's most solemn duty to make sure their ancestors' remains are interred properly in a city of the dead such as Necro. Here, the spirits draw comfort from one another against the chill of the mortal world. However, as a sign of great honor and sacrifice, an ancestor may grant that part of his remains be retained to serve as part of a ghost fence protecting the clan's shrine and family precincts. Such an arrangement is often part of the family's member's will, that a knucklebone shall be saved out of his remains and incorporated with solemn magic and a ceremony into a clan ghost fence. In more exceptional cases, an entire skeleton or even a preserved corpse would be bound into a ghost fence. These remains become a beacon and focus for ancestral spirits, and for the spirit of the remains in particular. The more remains used to make a ghost fence, the more powerful the fence is, and the most powerful mortals in life have their most powerful remains. The Great Ghost Fence created by the tribunal to hold back the plight incorporates the bones of many heroes of the temple and of the House Enderil and Redoran, who dedicated their spirits to the temple and clan as their surrogate families. The Ghost Fence also contains bones taken from the catacombs of Necrom and the many battlefields of Morrowind. The Mortal Chill. Spirits do not like to visit the mortal world, and they do so only out of duty and obligation. Spirits tell us that the other world is more pleasant, or at least more comfortable for spirits, than our world, which is cold, bitter, and full of pain and loss. Mad spirits. Spirits that are forced to remain in our world against their will may become mad spirits or ghosts. Some spirits are bound to this world because of some terrible circumstance of their death, or because of some powerful emotional bond to a person, place, or thing. These are called hauntings. Some spirits are captured and bound to enhance. Some spirits are captured and bound to enchanted items by wizards. If the binding is involuntary, the spirit usually goes mad. A willing spirit may or may not retain its sanity, depending on the strength of the spirit and the wisdom of the enchanter. Some spirits are bound against their will to protect family shrines. This unpleasant fate is reserved for those who have not served the family faithfully in life. Beautiful and honorable ancestral spirits often aid in the capture and binding of wayward spirits. These spirits usually go mad and make terrifying guardians. They are ritually prevented from harming mortals of their clan, but that does not necessarily discourage them from mischievous or peevish behavior. They are exceedingly dangerous for intruders. At the same time, if an intruder can penetrate the spirit's madness and play upon the spirit's resentment of his own clan, the angry spirits may be manipulated. Oblivion. The existence of oblivion is acknowledged by all Tamriel cultures, but there is little agreement on the nature of that other world, other than that it is the place where the Ager and Daedra live, and that communication and travel are possible between this world and oblivion through magic and ritual. The Dunmer do not emphasize the distinction between this world and oblivion as do human cultures of Tamriel. They regard our world and the other world as a whole, with many paths from one end to the other rather than two separate worlds of different natures with distinct borders. This philosophical viewpoint may account for the greater affinity of elves for magic and its practices, foreign views of Dunmer ancestral worship and spirit magic. The Altmeri and Bosmeri cultures also venerate their ancestors, but only by respecting the orderly and blissful passage of these spirits from this world to the next. That is, Wood Elves and High Elves believe it is cruel and unnatural to encourage the spirits of the dead to linger in our world. Even more, foreign views of Dunmeri ancestor worship and spirit magic. The Altmeri and Bosmeri cultures also venerate their ancestors, but only by respecting the orderly and blissful passage of these spirits from this world to the next. That is, Wood Elves and High Elves believe it is cruel and unnatural to encourage the spirits of the dead to linger in our world. Even more grotesque and repugnant is the display of the bodily remains of ancestors in ghost vents and ash pits. The presentation of finger bones in a family shrine, for example, is sacrilegious to the Bosmer, who eat their dead, and barbaric to the Altmer, who inter their dead. The human cultures of Tamriel are ignorant and fearful of dark elves and their culture, considering them to be inhuman and evil, like orcs and Argonians, but more sophisticated. The human populations of Tamriel associate Dunmeri ancestor worship and spirit magic with necromancy. In fact, this association of the Dark Elves with necromancy is at least partly responsible for the dark reputation of Dunmer throughout Tamriel. This is generally an ignorant misconception, for necromancy outside the acceptable clan rituals is a most abhorrent abomination in the eyes of the Dunmer. The Dark Elves would never think of practicing sorcerous necromancy upon any Dark Elf or upon the remains of any elf. However, Dark Elves consider the human and orcish races to be little more than animals. There is no injunction against necromancy upon such remains, or on the remains of any animal, bird, or insect. Imperial policy officially recognized the practices of Dunmer ancestor worship. Imperial policy officially recognizes the practices of Dunmeri ancestor veneration and spirit magic as a religion, and protects their freedoms to pursue such practices so long as they do not threaten the security of the Empire. Privately, most Imperial officials and traders believe Dark Elf ancestor worship and displays of remains are barbaric, or even necromantic. Telvanni, Telvanni Necromancy. The Telvanni are adept masters of necromancy. They do not, however, practice necromancy upon the remains of dark elves. Thane Telvanni regard such practices with loathing and righteous anger. They do practice necromancy upon the remains of animals and upon the remains of humans, orcs, and Argonians, who are technically no more than animals in the world. Publisher's note. This book was written by an unknown scholar as a guide for foreign visitors to Morrowind shortly after the armistice was signed. Many of these practices have since fallen into disfavor. The most obvious changes are those regarding the practice of necromancy and the Great Ghost Finch. Dunmer today regard necromancy upon any of the accepted races as an abomination. The Ghost Finch has forced many changes in the practice of ancestor worship, with the vast majority of ancestor remains going to strengthen the Great Ghost Finch around the mountain of Dagoth-Ur. There are very few clan Ghost Finches in Morrowind. The temple discourages such practices among the houses as selfish. The upkeep of family tombs and private waiting doors have also fallen into disfavor, as very few remains have been buried in these tombs and shrines since the armistice. In recent years, most Dunmer venerate a small portion of their ancestors' remains kept at a local temple. Yellow Book of Great House Hlaalu. The Yellow Book is a yearbook of the affairs of the Hlaalu Council of Vardenfell District for 3E426. It lists the current members of the council and their residences. It also chronicles significant events and council actions for the year. The Council is pleased to report a reduction in the incidence of theft and violent crime in the Hlaalu House districts, thanks to the vigilance of the legions and stern sentences by the magistrates. The Council laments the unfortunate disturbance of the public peace resulting from the increasingly aggressive competition between the Thieves Guild and the Kamanatong for control of the black markets.
Well, I'm a blade, and the Mages Guild associate. They told, well, to be long before the Fighters Guild is paying me out too. That Caius fellow ended up being my big break. His contacts got me into some guilds in Balmora, and now I'm making steady drakes. Of course, it comes with strings. My service to the Emperor isn't finished. I'm in Seyda Neen, so I can finish on this contract, and then back on that silk trader to Balmora. Cheers. God's help me.